Hey everybody, Hugh here. Welcome back. Well, it's just about mid-February and you can see the progress we've been making over at the allotment at the potager. Notice any differences? Yep, we availed of, there's various mounds of bark mulch around the place, so we've availed of a couple of those. Very useful indeed, just to smother out the weeds. Won't kill it, won't kill everything. In fact, you don't want to kill everything, but it'll smother out some of the smaller ones, and the other ones then we'll be able to pull out by hand and do a few other bits with as well, depending on where we're going. There's some perennial plants down there. They're flowers that come up every year, so don't want to smother those out completely either. And of course there's some shrubs in the bed there that you can't actually see. The main pathway, what we've been doing here is we've been lifting the older bark. You can see it's the darker coloured bark over there, and placing it on top of the beds here as a mulch. And it's a very nice mulch indeed. The nutrient content would be relatively low, but it is where the bark that was put down maybe 3 years ago has actually broken down and is now a lovely sort of rich humus for the soil as a dressing, or to mix in with the soil there. I've used it as a dressing. The likes of the rhubarb, you can see it's been a bit damaged by some cold there, but it is trying to sprout away. They always love a bit of a dressing. And because I'm mostly organic, maybe a little bit of bone meal or fish blood and bone. The blood part of the fish blood and bone is always great for a bit of greenery growth if you're doing some of the crop side of things. For the flowers and that, I don't really want them to grow too much. It's the opposite maybe to what you'd be doing with your summer bedding, where you want them to grow and flower themselves to death. The likes of the perennials here, I want a nice steady slow growth, and that's where the likes of the sort of the dressing, the old bark that's broken down, really does come into its own. So you can see there, more of the pathway to actually do, and again that'll get heaped up over the plants that are on the bed here. That big bushy thing you're looking at there in front of the purple pallet, or should I say violet pallet, was trained or shaped as a heart. But you can see it's lost its shape completely, and given that Valentine's Day is upon us, or maybe by the time this video goes out will have passed, time to get that heart back in a bit of shape. You can see there, more to do, far from perfect, but coming along. The likes of the raspberry plants there, can you see, does the camera pick up those older canes that definitely are no longer of any use? They fruited last year, and these fresher brown canes are the ones that will produce some fruit this year. Now, in actual fact, so they're the ones you'll prune out, but indeed, because this is an autumn raspberry, I could actually prune the whole thing right down if I wanted, and the new shoots that would come up in the spring will fruit and grow and fruit in the 1 year. But I always do leave some. It needs to be thinned out, so I'll do that. That's the sage plant, and behind it, I didn't cover it in the last video, is a very battered laurel. Poor thing, really did get the worst of the past couple of winters, so that needs to be brought home and repotted, knocked out of its pot, fresh soil put on it, and put back into the pot, brought on in the grow tunnel we have there. Some of the weeds there that we've been scuffling out and that, you can see I've left them in little piles. Very handy for insects and wee creatures to take, make a little bed for themselves when the weather's cold. So they'll do that, and you can see that's the natural bed, or the native bed, and beyond it there, can you see the robin? It's just over by the bin there, popping around because the ground is freshly scuffled, looking for a few worms or other insects. So it's a win for them, and obviously win for us. Food tunnel, not too much has been done by way of the soil, apart from covering over the areas not being used. That's a bit of old Mypex that I had found and that I had stored for the purposes. The soil there that's a bit bare, again cleaned off, but more needs to be done. And the wildlife area, what should I do with the wildlife area? Do I leave? Do I do more of? Not quite sure. Any thoughts on a postcard, please? But you can see bare soil attracts native plants or weeds. So if you keep it covered, you'll suppress. And again, the same thing. Bark path, bark on the beds, some of the perennials coming through there. And the silver spear loves this sort of seasidey environment where it just doesn't get too cold. That lovely metal gate that I saved a couple of years back, again, haven't done much with it apart from it sitting there, so we'll have to see what we'll do with that. And this area, apart from the black plastic being put down, is relatively untouched. But again, anything helps to smother. I was just saying the other day, this is where the glass house was for a year, and before that it was fairly rough, so don't really know what to do with it. Maybe turn it back into one of an outdoor grow bed. Thoughts are always welcome. As you know, this is more of a flower allotment, an area of interest with a few veg plants thrown in. So whatever you think there. Those lovely bamboo-like canes there, the idea with them is it grows as a lovely quick growing grass. It's a miscanthus, a lovely quick growing grass, and the idea of removing those canes before the fresh ones come in, and then basically the reason that big framework is there, originally it was for a bit of sweet pea, but then I always intended to take those miscanthus and tie them to this. Be a lovely feature, lovely backdrop for this main bed as we're looking. And of course my little Japanese, or tribute to a Japanese bed there, needs a bit of touching up, or not, depending on your shabby chic. So plenty of just cutting back, mostly weeding, and leaving some weeds, or should I say native plants, particularly dandelions, some areas of dandelions, because they'll be early to produce some pollen for bees. And yeah, so that's progress as you see it. So, of course, the trusty spade, a friend of mine gave me that for one of my big 0 birthdays, and I use it away there. And at some stage the steel in that will become worn down from use, and it'll be a lovely family heirloom if it's so required. Or not. Anyway, it gives you a nice view of the progress so far, mid-February, and this is where we're at. Lovely to see it. Terry King was mentioning in one of the comments recently, he said little and often, Hugh, little and often, and that's more or less the mantra that we have. We'll come here, we'll do a couple of hours, maybe have a cup of tea, enjoy ourselves as we work, and enjoy the progress as well. Anyway, thanks as always for stopping by. Remember to like and subscribe, and of course leave a comment. Appreciate all the comments, be they good or not so good, and of course lots of tips and hints there as well. Lots of people with suggestions. Look after yourselves. All the best for now. Take care. Bye bye.